Okay, so the next steps along the way is to finish out the pictures. So I have the two finished pictures down here on the bottom. I'll show you guys real quick. So we're building up a few more layers onto them. So I'm going to activate my paint again, just by getting a little bit of water into it. I'm going to need blue, I'm going to need green, I'm going to need a little bit of brown. I'm going to throw a little water in there just to get it moving. And let's see, mainly those three. So I'm going to start with a little bit more of a flat brush, and I'm going to create the bottom line of the mountains up at the top here. So I'm going to get some pigment. I want this to be really, really thick and really, really opaque so that you can't see through it. So I'm going to make sure that I rotate quite a bit into the paint to start out with. Alright, and then I'm going to go into here, I'm going to create my last line and work up and down. And I'm going to fill that in. And then this one I'm not going to wash out the feet. This one I'm going to actually let it switch over to a dry brush. Before we've only used a dry brush by itself. And now we're going to transition to a dry brush. So fill all of that in so I have a nice hard edge up at the top. And then I'm going to start kind of scraping down. And I turn my brush to the side a little bit so that I can kind of create the little bit of waves almost here with the water, kind of shine on the water, make sure it doesn't get too edgy right down next to it. And I'm going to scratch across. And get kind of little streaks going. So this is a dry brush. Fill in the bottom of that mountain a little bit so it doesn't look weird. And I'm going to actually have the land come in front of it also. So I need a little bit more color again. Pick up a little more green since it is down on the ground. I'm going to keep getting more green as it goes. But don't let it be fully green because right now everything's kind of in the blues range, and watercolor has a tendency to usually be in the kind of same subset, and it doesn't have to be based on reality. So I'm going to pull my land across here. I'm going to fill that in completely. Need a little bit more water to get a little more activated. So fill in so that I don't see through it anymore. And work through it. There we go. Now I'm going to let that dry for just a few minutes. And I'm going to go work on the other ones so that I can also go on top of it with the tree then afterwards. So this one I need to actually pull the trees now, the tape off, and this has worked as a resist so far so that I can work on my sky. The problem that people have with paintings all the time is that they think when they start painting they start with what's called the foreground, and they start painting the trees and everything that's closest to us. They don't think about the fact that you really need to think about the background and work forward. Usually that's kind of their afterthought. You need to absolutely think about that first. Now when you're pulling your tape off, you need to be very careful that you keep your thumb down right next to it when you're pulling so that you don't start ripping the paper. If the paper does start catching an edge and ripping, you need to stop immediately and turn around and start pulling the other direction towards it. And when you get up to the edge of the tape, you might want to kind of pull it a corner, a little bit of an angle coming off of there. And if it did leak down through the center of it, that's not a big deal either. There's a little leak between my branches here. So that's fine. So now I have that off of there. Now, this is a really cool way of working with getting kind of shading on pictures. Now, I've already established that the light source is coming from this way. So to get the shading to happen, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go across first so that I'm not crossing over later. I'm just going to put water down. Now, you've noticed that I haven't really changed my water in between. I know you don't have the luxury of that from day to day to do it. But right now it's still got a tint of the same color. If you have pure water, that's fine too. You can add just a little bit more color afterwards, but this gives it kind of that to start with. And I just picked up the color is all. I want to be careful when I get up next to the edge. Take your time and make sure that it really goes along that edge there. Because when I pick up my color now, and I'm going to pick up kind of a little bit of brown into it, just to get a little more tree color, and I'm going to just tap that on the side, going down, and that gives me my little bit harder shadow going down the edge, and this will kind of leak its way across a little bit. You might need to coax it a little bit. I'm going to coax it a little ways across and let it kind of go the rest of the way by itself. And then I'm going to go back on that edge again with a little bit more brown and darken that edge. It's a little extreme. Give a little more blue into it. And I'm going to drop a little bit more shadow on that edge. If things don't have shadows, they don't look real. So this has its shadow going now. Now I can turn sideways with my brush and just kind of tap across a couple of times because birch trees do have a little bit. This isn't the cut-in yet. I'm going to actually do the cut-in with the scratch back, and I'm going to pull across and get those things. Now it's a little hard to not be so like even about everything. Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to do the branches just a little bit too, so I might need to add a little bit of water back again to the branches to do this. I'm going to pick the side that has the shadow and put those in. So that's how you do the branches. I'm going to let that one dry just a little bit. See if this one's dry yet. It's almost dry. I'm going to grab my hairdryer one more time to make it quicker. You will probably work longer on this, so it will dry down quicker for you as you go. Now notice I'm staying a little ways up off the surface, and I'm not bobbling back and forth. This isn't about fluffing anything. This is about just drying it, basically. So I'm just staying steady. And get that to there. The reason that I did that is I'm going to show you really quick how to do the grass in front of it. I'm not going to do all three trees just so that I don't bore you. So I'm going to go in with the grass real quick on this one. Let's see, I'm going to use a smaller brush to do this one. So I'm going to pick up a darker color but still in that same realm. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more brown because it is winter in this. I'm going to pick up a little bit more blue though, so that it matches in with the picture a little bit better, and maybe a little bit of green, just a touch, but a little bit more brown again. Okay, now I don't want this too wet on my brush. I kind of went off the side here to kind of scrape that off, and I could put some grass down at the bottom of the tree trunk. A lot of times that does grow around the edges of trees. So I'm just kind of flicking upward, creating a little bit of brush around, or a little bit of foliage around the bottom of the tree, and then I'm also going to put a little bit down towards the bottom here. Now I don't want to overlap too much on my other trees right now because I want to go in with them and do them afterwards so they look nice too. Build up colors again in this, so I'm going to pick up a little bit of straight brown and put into there afterwards and kind of build that up a little bit with different colors, but you can go across and create the rest of the grass across the bottom there. The tree itself over here, I'm also going to use kind of a medium round brush here, and I'm going to pick up a very dark color of whatever is was on there before. So I'm going to pick up a lot of blue with probably just mix into this one since it's already darkened a little bit with brown, and a little bit of green again, a little bit more blue. Now this with the tree, you might want to practice this on another piece of paper first, because the trees, what you need to do is kind of, and I'm going to let it start off the tape, you need to kind of swoop upward in one swoop first and figure out where you're going to go, and then you build off of that one. So, and start on the tree trunk, follow it a little bit ways, and just kind of branch upward and off. And you just let them get smaller as they go. You can build the trunk a little bit wider down here and go off a separate direction. So I go up here, kind of go off there, go through the center and up and off, and you kind of just keep building off of those spots. And keep working that in. Just make sure you can't see your tree trunk or your mountains through it. If you can, you need to darken and thicken a little bit more. So keep going till you have your tree the way you want it to be there. Sign these eventually with either paint if you can control it. I've never been very good at controlling what I do with this. You can sign it with a pen or with pencil, whichever. Just don't sign down into the frame part, sign on the picture itself. Whatever makes it stand out more along the way.